Election time news. You want to talk political summations, poll reviews, nonpartisan predictions, reviews, and compilations on other political forecasters. Today is Wednesday, October 23rd, 2024, and today I'll be doing my second to last weekly full update of the presidential election map, going over the margins column. Over here is going to be this side. Yesterday I did my chances of victory, and today I'll be doing margins. Some of them are a bit different, so that's generally why I have them be a bit more distinct. If you like content like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel. I have a goal of 500 subscribers by election night, so do me a favor and click on that bright red button below. Let's make sure to join the Discord, get alerts when I upload, take part in election prediction, and more. The link's in the description and on my YouTube homepage. To start things off, we're going to go in poll closing time order again, just to keep things consistent with how we did them yesterday. And I'm going to be doing a bit of information based off of the polls that I'm going to be using Real Clear Polling this time. Just try to balance things out from using DDHQ in the Hill yesterday. So, looking at things now, start things off the 7 p.m. poll closing time, we're going to have Indiana, Kentucky, South Carolina are going to go red. All of these are, again, of course, pretty consistently Republican states. Indiana, I'm saying probably about 15.5. If we look at the results from 2020, you can see here it was 16, so it's actually a bit of a decrease from what it was in 2020, just because of the quite a bit of suburban regions in Indiana. Outside of Chicago here, these counties moved to the left. This one actually flipped to Tippecanoe County. Some regions over here, Hamilton County is a more suburban county, so I could see it a bit moving to the left, but of course, as you can see here, again, I could potentially see it moving further to the right, up to about 18 points. Kentucky is a very Republican state, 26 points. That is right on par with how Trump did in 2020. And then, of course, we have South Carolina, which is going to be a bit closer. It's a bit less Republican than a few of these other ones. 11.75 points, right around, again, on par about 2020. I think that there's going to be a bit of a rightward shift, but I think it's going to be more in areas like California and outside New York City and things like that. More that's going to shift the popular vote more than in some of these smaller states. Kamala Harris is going to win Vermont. That's relatively obvious. It's the most Democratic state in the 2020 presidential election. 34.5 points. That's actually a whole percentage worse than Biden did in 2020. These very Democratic regions is really where Kamala Harris is going to struggle. And then moving on, next is going to be the state of Virginia. That is going to be a certain margin that's just under 10%, probably around 8%. I could see it going up, or her improving a little bit on Joe Biden's margin. I actually think that it's actually going to be a bit closer to Joe Biden's margin, just because I think that the polling practices this cycle are probably trying eventually oversampling Republicans here. And I think the continual urbanization of this region right around D.C. is really going to impact how far to the left the state's going to vote. So I think it's definitely going to end up actually coming out and being a surprise on election night how far to the right it will end up voting. Or how far to the left it will end up voting. And then down at Georgia, I do have this going for Donald Trump as a tilt margin here. Not by that much, though. 3/4 of a point. But I think that's a bit of that's a point to the right from where it was last time, so that's really not that big of a shift as far as that's concerned. And that's going to be the first hour of polls closing. Most of the polls close in Florida except for the Panhandle, so I'm not going to call that because those counties there. Next is 7:30. For the same reason, I'm not going to call West Virginia until 9 p.m. 8 p.m. First, we have Ohio. That's going to be likely. I've seen some I've seen some people circulate that there's a chance that it's going to go over 10 points. I don't see that happening. That's best case for them, I think. The Republican Party. Best case for the Democrats is probably going to be around 6 points. 9 points is probably a bit more on par, which is still quite a bit of an improvement. 8.1 in 2016 to 8 in 2020. That's still a point increase. this is mainly going to be the sort of region where Donald Trump is going to improve. There's a rightward movement in some of these regions, Lorain and Mahoning over there. Losing Montgomery County is going to be a bit of a difficulty, but gains in Lucas and this region around here, they're really going to be, I forget which of the C cities there are, because there's 3 C cities in Ohio, but that's really going to be the main sort of a region that Donald Trump is going to be gaining in this election cycle. And then, of course, we have North Carolina. That is going to go tilt Republican. This one's going to be really close as well. It's not going to be that big of a victory, but it is still definitely going to be enough to get him over the line, probably about half a point, which is even worse than he did in 2020, just because of the shifts that we've been seeing of course, there's been the rightward shifts in the northeastern part of the state, but some of these regions out over here have really been shifting hard to the left. And so I think that's actually going to be moving the state as a whole more towards the left than to the right. So as a whole, the state is going to move about 2 points to the left or so. So that is the 7:30. Next is 8. We're going to start off with the Maine's 2nd congressional district. I believe that is actually likely. Scroll up, likely. Yeah, it's likely. So that's going to be a bit of a drop as well. 7.5 points here. I have it going by 7. Just a bit of a drop, just because of a bit of gains in rural areas, just because they were so maxed out in 2020 that I think that there's only, space to lose at this point in time. I mean, like 20 points, 20, 26, 23. I feel like there's only really space to lose it as far as that goes there for Donald Trump. So he's going to lose. I think he's going to lose a bit of support. It's really not going to matter all that much, and it is only one electoral vote. But I do still think there's going to be a bit of lost ground there. And I believe in the exact same respect, there's going to be lost ground in Maine's 1st district for the Democrats, because there's also a loss of support in the rural regions. So it's still going to be a solid Democratic region, however, so that is going to be a safe Democratic electoral vote. Looking in at the state of Maine as a whole, there's going to be a certain margin, 8.5 points. That's again going to be a drop from 2020. Only about half a point, though, for the Democrats lost there. Same is going to be in New Hampshire. It's going to be a certain margin, another 7.5 points. That's actually on par, even better than Joe Biden did. Probably somewhere right between 7.25 and 7.5 as far as the margin there goes. And then we have all of these safe states. They're all going to be over 10 points. They have been. They all were over by. They were all over 14 in 2016 and in 2020. The lowest being New Jersey, 14.1 for Hillary Clinton in 2016. I don't think there's really much to have to explain there, especially now with District of Columbia, which has never voted for a Democrat by less than, I think it's 80%. So next up is going to be the state of Pennsylvania, the key swing state. I do have this now actually very slightly going for Donald Trump. Looking here at the state, now I'm really going to get into the polling here, but I literally just have it barely flipping for Donald Trump. He just has the odds. I don't even have him actually with any real numbers here, but he does lead by a relatively considerable amount in the Real Clear polling odds. He's had, Atlas Intel, which I, ignore, and then there's Trafalgar Group, which that's going to be Trump +2, shifting it to the left by 1. New York Times Siena, I ignore them. They've been weird this cycle too. Rasmussen to the left by 1. That's still Trump +2. So Trump +2, Trump +2, Trump +1, American Greatness. Well, that's probably, a right-leaning pollster. Shifted to the left by 1. That's a tie. So Harris hasn't actually had a victory one since University of Massachusetts. Down here, that was a week, 2 weeks ago. So these polls have really been looking rough for Kamala Harris recently, so I did flip this state to Donald Trump, as I think that tide does finally push against the incumbency factor there, as it had been a blue state for a very, very long time, until, of course, Donald Trump did finally manage to push it over in 2016. Then, of course, we have the state of West Virginia, very, very Republican state. Same thing for the trio down here, and Missouri, as well as Oklahoma. Now, Missouri is the most interesting out of these. Of course, it was semi-competitive. It was actually competitive. In 2008, McCain only won it by 0.13%, but then it shifted very, very hard to the right, 9.4 for Romney, and then 18.6 for Trump in 2016, and 15.4 for Trump in 2020, and of course this cycle I expect to be basically no different. 16 points for Donald Trump. That's going to be that's a slight gain there in the state of Missouri. Oklahoma is the third most Republican state in the nation, only behind West Virginia and Wyoming. And then is going to be the state of Florida, where we see considerable gains here for Donald Trump. This is going to be another big factor pulling him up in the national vote. 5 points for Donald Trump. That's going to be a likely margin. That's basically, that's a solid 1.5 from his 2020 margins, which of course are a solid over 2 points from his 2016 margins. So that's actually a bit of a slowdown in Florida, but I don't think there's much more to be gained because he's going to be gaining a bit in Miami-Dade. Not really enough to flip it, I don't think. Probably winning Pinellas again. He's going to be losing in Duval. He's going to be losing in Seminole. He's going to be losing in Osceola and Orange. So I think that's going to hold back more of the rightward shift in the state. But he is still, as a whole, going to gain quite a bit of votes in the state of Florida that he did not get last time. And in the state of Illinois, Kamala Harris will carry the state of Illinois with its 19 electoral votes, probably by roughly 16 points or so. It's been looking pretty strong so far. 17. It's still a point less than Joe Biden won it by. I expect there's going to be a lot of lost support in some southern regions of Chicago, but there's still not going to be all that big of a rightward shift in the state as a whole. Then is the 8:30 p.m. poll closing time. Just Arkansas, one of the most Republican states in the country. It did go blue for Bill Clinton in 1996, but then it shifted to vote for Bush and has not really been anywhere near competitive ever since. So then, of course, we're moving into the 9 p.m. poll closing time, and New York is going to go for Kamala Harris. This is a safe Democratic state. There's no chance it's going to go for Donald Trump. Contrary to a little bit of discussion here, 20 points, which is still considerably less than Joe Biden won it by. That's a solid 3 points to the right from where it was. I could see a bit of an improvement, but this is in, a blue sweep scenario where, blue wave where the polls were greatly underestimating the Democrat support, 2022 style. But what I do see here is definitely a bit of losses, especially in, eastern Long Island and, northern regions over here, especially in these two competitive House districts. And then we have the state of Michigan, which I do still have going for Kamala Harris. There's been some talk about, backlash by the Muslim community against the perceived failures of the Biden-Harris administration in Gaza and that situation there. However, I don't think it's really going to be enough. I could see Trump flipping it. I mean, of course, he did it in 2016 by the narrowest of margins, but I don't see it happening still as of yet. I do have this in Kamala Harris's column with a relatively considerable good chance. This is just demographically the best state out of the trio for Kamala Harris. But, of course, worse for Kamala Harris is the state of Wisconsin, which I have going for Donald Trump. Another critical 10 electoral votes for the former president. Again, I have literally 0 votes in for him right there, but I do have him flipping the state. So just by a few dozen or a few hundred. But don't mind me getting a little water here. And we're going to get to Minnesota. That's going to be certain for Kamala Harris. The home state of her running mate Tim Walz. We have the probably about 7.25 point margin, which is a bit better than Joe Biden did. I don't see any real shift to the right here in the state, and I think that home field advantage will actually help. And, seeing these light red counties, I definitely could see them flipping potentially, as well as more movement in Winona and Carlton and some of these regions like Clay County moving further to the left more than these regions are going to be able to move to the right just because they're already so saturated, almost 50 points for Donald Trump already. So I just don't see much movement available in the state of Minnesota for Donald Trump to make gains in. So I see that it's going to be right about on par, if not even better, for Kamala Harris. Now, of course, we have the safe states all throughout here. No surprise there. That's a solid block of Donald Trump's electorate. And then we're going to go to Iowa, where I have it in as certain as well, I do believe. Yes, certain, 7.5 points. Why I have that down is still because of that one poll. There's another one coming out very soon, so I will probably adjust that. But I have it going down by 0.7 of a point just because of that one poll that came out that had her only Donald Trump only up by 4 ahead of Kamala Harris. And I could definitely see a point for some of these regions, moving back. I mean, the state voted for Barack Obama twice. I could see Black Hawk County moving to the left again, movement in Dallas County, some of these regions right along the river. I definitely could see a case for some of those moving again. There's definitely also potentially just a chance that that's just a completely wrong flag there. That's a false flag to follow. Then we have the 2nd Congressional District of Nebraska. This is certain for Kamala Harris, 8 points. This is definitely going to improve. Unless there's a red wave, there's definitely going to be improvement from Joe Biden's 6.6-point margin. It's the perfect demographic to be shifting to the left as of right now. Dense suburban regions. That's that's the perfect new Democratic region as of today. So it's definitely going to be going well for them. I'm just quickly filling these states and I'll elaborate on them in a bit. But that's the kind of demographic that they're going to be picking up most as of right now. Now, of course, as you can see, Donald Trump has just won the election with the addition of Texas and Arizona, but moving on anyway to Colorado. We have 12-point victory for Kamala Harris. This is worse, 1.5 points than Joe Biden did. I can see movement back in, some of these regions. Now, Chaffee, I'm pretty sure, is relatively suburban. That's not coming back or anything. But some of these outer regions over here and some losses in Denver 61 points. There's a lot of room for losses there by the Democrats. That could definitely end up going in Donald Trump's favor there, so I see that dropping a good bit. New Mexico, same sort of thing, except it's mainly loss in not college-educated voters and Latino voters, dropping to 8.5 points. Biden won it by 10.8, so that would be a very considerable loss in the state of New Mexico, and of course in Arizona, that's going to be 1 point for Donald Trump. Tilt margin there. That would be a 1.3 point shift to the right. I actually don't see Maricopa County moving to the right, really. I think it's probably going to stay right about there, maybe up to 2.5 points to the left. I think there's really going to be movement in Santa Cruz, Pima County, Cochise County, and basically every single other county in the state is going to move to the right. But not really Maricopa, just because of the growth and diversification of Phoenix is really going to be that suburban. And if there's any sleeper flip, it's going to be Arizona. If there's any state that surprises anyone on election night, it's going to be Arizona going blue. Then we have Montana, Utah, and Nevada. The latter two, the former two, I don't think I really need to describe that much. However, to the latter, Nevada. Here we have the polling average on Real Clear Polling, which I haven't pulled up for the other ones yet, but Trump's ahead by 0.9 of a point here, but Fabrizio up by 2. 2 ties, one by Insider Advantage, one by Atlas Intel. Rasmussen reports Trump up by 1, essentially. This one, Trafalgar, Harris up by adjusted 2. That's a pretty good one. But it's just because of how heavy of a Democratic support has been in Nevada. This is probably the perfect state for Republicans to flip. But I think that the Democrats will probably be squeezing one more election cycle out of the state of Nevada before it shifts red in 2028, probably. But its incumbency is just, I feel like it's just too strong. It's going to hold on for one more cycle. Idaho is a very Republican state. I don't really think I need to clarify on that much. Oregon is interesting, as I think there's going to be a bit of a loss here. 16.5 points. 16.1. I actually have a gain. I think I mentioned it like 15.5 or so. There's going to be a bit of a decrease. There was that one poll that only had her up by 6 back when she was first added to the Democratic ticket. So I think there's going to be a bit of a loss in Oregon. California, of course, is our home state. 22 points or so. That's right about on 27 here, actually. That's still 2 points worse than Joe Biden did. So that's definitely going to help Trump a lot with the popular vote, especially if there's even, a 1 point gain in the largest county in the entire country. It's larger than all but the 10 largest states by population. That is, of course, Los Angeles County. 3 million votes for Joe Biden right there. That's, if you remove Los Angeles County, Donald Trump won the popular vote in 2020. So it really is, actually not really, because he was only ahead by 1.88 million. But anyway, it's just been so close. It's just, such a large amount of votes there that can be gained towards Donald Trump that it's, even that 2 point loss is really going to hurt Kamala Harris in the popular vote. And then, of course, Hawaii is going to go Democratic, probably by about 20 points or so. I think I have it somewhere in the 20s or 29 points here. That's still going to be a bit down, I think, from Joe Biden's margin, 29.5. So just a small decrease. And then here, actually, Alaska is moving to the left. It's going to be certain 10 points on the nose, which is a bit less than Trump wanted by there. I could probably see it going by around 7.5 on a really good night, but as of right now, I still see it going a bit to the right. So thank you all so much for watching. Let me know your opinions down in the comments. These two states are really, really close. And, of course, if you take them from Trump, that he doesn't even win at that point. So these two states decide the entire election, especially, Pennsylvania. You let me know what you think on the comments, how feasible, a blue Arizona is. I could definitely see this map actually showing up on election night. It would be very interesting to see. But as of right now, of course, I have both of them going red. So thank you all so much for watching. Have a fabulous rest of your day. Tomorrow is going to be the Senate race update. So see you all then.